Hello everyone. So, are you facing any kind of problem while understanding the inner meaning of a poetry or what the poetry is exactly depicting? Do you want to know easy steps, easy ways to find out the inner meaning of a poetry and line by line meaning what the exact plot of the poetry is all about? Then in today's class, do follow whatever ways I would suggest you, and I guarantee you that you will be able to score well in your AP examination, and you can definitely understand the basic plot line of your poems. So let's get started. Let's start knowing about a simple steps that you all need to know, through which you can just understand what the poem is exactly talking about. Here we are going to discover the poetic meaning with a simple set of steps. Alright, let's start. Chances are the first time that you read a poem, you sense at least some of what the poet is trying to convey. Of course, if you read a poem for the first time, at least you will understand 20% of what the poet is actually trying to say. You may know right away, of course. Especially readers who love to read, who read a lot, who understands and analyze a lot of text, they would definitely understand what the poem or what the text is about to say. For example, that the poem is about war and its tragic effects, or about love and its tragic effects. So yeah, there can be many plots of a poem. However, if you stop after that first reading, you will miss most of the good stuff. Quality poetry packs a lot of meaning into a relatively small space. So here they are talking about reading the text most of the times. So our first thing that we should be considering it is to read again and again. Okay, read again. Do not stop after the first reading. To discover what's really there on the literal level, you have to read the poem a couple of times. So, what did I say? You should be reading the poem a couple of times, not passively, but interactively. Now, what does this mean? This means that you are not going to just blatantly read it, you should be interactive while reading it. So to do so, you need to follow these steps. Number one, zero in on unfamiliar words. Now, to a poet, words are the perfect pail and shovel in the world's best sandbox. Some poets delight in finding words that hardly anyone ever uses. So, in order to show their uniqueness, each poet uses their own words. Others specialize in the most obscure definition of a common word. On the first read through, underline any word that you won't understand. If you aren't operating under test scrutiny conditions, haul out a good dictionary or turn to a quality online source to check the definitions of the words that you have underlined. So basically, what they are trying to tell you is go for the vocabs. Look up for the new words, that is, go for the vocabs. Just focus on the vocabs. Find out the meanings. Look up a dictionary, or you have this Google, Wikipedia. Look up the meanings of the words which you think you don't know the meaning of, or you haven't come across this word previously. If you are taking an AP exam, dictionaries aren't allowed. So whoever are planning to give this AP exam, you will know that dictionaries aren't allowed over here. So in this situation, you have to work from context. Now, later in this later section, you will understand the next step that you should be following. Um, Considering context and point of view for strategies that help you answer vocabulary in context questions. So basically, in order to understand the new word, you need to consider the context, like where is this word used, in which context has this word been used, and what point of view has been used. If you just if you can analyze these two things, you can at least till 50% you would be able to understand what the new vocab is trying to say. when dictionaries when dictionaries are off limits and a word totally stumps you, don't give up on the poem. You may still be able to understand the main idea and get most or all of the multiple choice answers right. If the poem appears in the essay portion of the exam, you probably have tons to write about, even without knowing one or two puzzling words. So, quite a nice thing that they have said is that if you are given MCQs, then the problem will arise a bit. Like if you seriously don't understand the new vocabs. But if you are given descriptive writing, then of course it doesn't even matter if you do not know 2 to 3 words. If you focus on the other section or other portions of that paragraph or poem, definitely you would be able to write long answers without even thinking of those puzzling words. Okay. But as I told you, for MCQ based questions, go for the context in which that word has been used and try to figure out the point of view. Next step that they have told us to follow is examining the punctuations. Now, punctuation helps you untangle one sentence from another. All right. So, of course, if there is a full stop, if there is a comma, you will be able to just untangle one sentence from another. Look for periods, question marks, or exclamation points that mark the end of a sentence. Also, check for semicolons, colons, commas, dashes, and parentheses. A semicolon continues a sentence and tells you that the words before the semicolon belong to one unit of thought and the words after the semicolon belong to another unit. Whatever the semicolon connects is closely related. A colon may precede an explanation or it may introduce a list. Commas and parentheses set of words that should be grouped together. So commas and parentheses, all these help you to understand, differentiate how and what words you can consider together in a sentence. Poets are rebels and they don't always feel bound by the usual rules of punctuation. When you check punctuation, keep in mind that the poet may be bending or breaking the rules. Yeah. Another point that you should be like keeping in mind is that poets do not go with the rules. In simple way, we can say poets violate the rules, the grammar rules, okay, the punctuation rules. So this is another very important point that you should be remembering is poets violate the punctuation rules. So not always you will be able to figure out which punctuation is actually like aiming for what. Okay. If so, ask why he or she is breaking the rules because chances are the change is intended to make a point. Next rule that they are trying to tell us is check the syntax. Check the syntax. Now, syntax is the English teacher term for the way a sentence is put together grammatically. So, grammatically correct sentences. That's the structure, the way a sentence is put together grammatically. That is known as syntax. Now, poets often fiddle with the usual subject-verb order. Okay, so just like the way you have done subject-verb agreement, here poets normally violate that also. So poets play with the subject-verb agreement also. Subject-verb order. So you may need to rearrange the words or phrases in order to grasp what's going on in the poem. Start by asking yourself which ideas belong together. Then focus on the verb, the word that expresses action or state of being. To determine the subject, ask who or what is doing the action or exists in that state of being. Next, restate the subject-verb pair and ask what. The answer, if you get one, is a complement. So try to ask the subject-verb pair different questions. If you get those answers, then definitely you can chalk out what the poem is all about. That is another way. You don't need to memorize grammatical terms. What's important is that once you have the subject verb complement, you have established the foundation of the sentence. Now turn to descriptive words or phrases. Ask where, how, what kind, and similar questions to sort out what's describing what. So what questions you are going to ask these subject verb orders is that where, how, what kind, and other similar questions. All right. Next way how you can understand the meaning of a poem is paraphrase the poem. Now, if you haven't done so already, read the poem a second time. So here the basic thing is to read it for a second time. Like, don't forget the title. It adds meaning also. Okay, so title is very important. Title of a poem, it like tells us a lot about the poem. After you have reread the poem, restate it in your own words. This activity is called paraphrasing. Like you are like summarizing it. You have analyzed the poem, you have read it for 2-3 times. Now you are jotting down the important points in the form of a summary so that it gets into your head. To make it more easier, I suppose. Next is identify the people in the poem. Now, if you have time, one more reading may be in order, unless, of course, you are 100% sure that you have grasped everything already. Now, during this third reading, find out who's who. Also, check on the speaker or the I in the poem. Like if there is an I in the poem, check who is this, okay? Remember, however, that not every poem has a speaker. What can you determine about the identity of the speaker? Can you find any other people in the poem? What do you know about those folks? So 3 questions that you can ask the characters in the poem is that what can you determine about the identity of the speaker? Can you find any other people in the poem? What do you know about those folks? So these questions we are going to ask to each of the characters. Like in the text, you are going to ask so that if you get the answer, you will get your understanding of the poem like easily. Now, poets often write from personal experience. Yes, of course, poets have that kind of thinking power that they can like add their own imagination as well as add their own personal experience and then frame a like very good poem. But they reserve the right to invent the characters even when they are using first person. That is I, me, my forms. In other words, don't confuse the poet with the speaker. So one is the poet, another is the speaker. Both are not the same. Remember this, do not confuse the poet with the speaker. Next rule rather that you would be following is identify the setting and the situation. So previously we have come to know about the characters of the poem. To ask them who are they, then we'll get an answer. Now we are coming towards the setting and the situation. Okay, setting of the poem and the situation of the poem. What is actually going on? Not all poems have a distinct setting, but some do. To get a thorough understanding of the poem, as you read, ask where, when, and what's going on. So I just told you some time back where, when, and what's going on. Okay. Now I'm going to apply the steps, all these steps which we just went through to a classic poem. Okay, so this, for starters, this is a poem to Lucasta, Going to the Wars. This is by Richard Lovelace, who was a 17th century poet. Tell me not, sweet, I'm unkind, that from the nunnery of thy chaste breast and quiet mind to war and arms I fly. True, a true mistress now I chase, the first foe in the field, and with a stronger faith embrace a sword, a horse, a shield. Yet this inconsistency is such as you too shall adore. I could not love thee, dear, so much, loved I not honor more. So now what things are being followed over here to analyze this poem? Now to analyze this poem, here are certain steps that are applied. Glance through the poem. Search for words that are new to you. So some words over here are like included, like inconstancy. Inconstancy means disloyalty. Okay, nunnery means a place where nuns live. Shasta means pure. Now that you know the vocabulary in the poem, you can proceed to step 2. So first step is vocabs, finding out the new words, then writing down the meanings. Okay, second step is review the punctuation and the breakup of the text. So we are now looking over to the punctuations in the text. You can see that each stanza or grouping of lines in a poem is one complete sentence. Now you know that you are looking for a complete separate thought in each stanza. The semicolons in the second and the third stanza subdivide each of these complete thoughts into two smaller units. To decode the poem, examine each separate thought in turn. So grouping of lines is one complete sentence. Like you can see that each stanza or grouping of lines. Like stanzas are made throughout the poem. If you just have a look at the poem, let me show you once. If you just have a look at the poem, you will see there are separate stanzas which help us to identify them much more easier. We can easily find out where are the punctuations, where are the semicolons, where are the like full stops and all. So everything we can identify more clearly because it's in paragraphs. Like this is a stanza, this is the second stanza, and this is the third stanza. Coming back to the rules. Number three way is to consider the syntax in the poem. Next is to consider the syntax. Line 1, for example, is fairly conventional. That is the verb tell and the subject is an implied you because the sentence is giving a command. The only word in a strange spot is not. But you can easily see that tell me not is the equivalent of don't tell me. Yep, this is there in the first sentence. Let's get a look uh, at the first sentence which is provided. Yes, tell me not. This one. This line we were talking about. Syntax. That there is a grammatical error, okay? Like Tell me not is a little disarranged, right? It's not arranged in a proper order, the way we say it. Tell me not, they are talking about. Now, after line 1, the syntax is more unusual but still accessible. Simply look for the next verb, which is fly. The subject is I. Okay. Next verb is fly. Then you have I. Now you have a base, that is I fly. To hang the other words on. Where do I fly? To war and arms. Okay. So these are the different syntax that you can see all over the poem. Um, you can ask that and then from where. Okay, so we are asking questions to the syntax. Okay, like in your mind you can ask questions to the syntax or the grammatical errors. Okay, I fly from the nunnery of thy chaste breast and quiet mind. Now you have cracked the first stanza, except for the word. Okay, yeah, we have almost come to know about the first stanza, how to like break it up, how to understand it. You may expect it to belong to the first line, which would read, "Tell me not, sweet, that I am unkind." However, the comma after unkind hints at a break. So that belongs to lines 2 to 4 where it means because. Okay. So what did we conclude from all the ways of understanding the inner meaning of the poetry? First of all, we need to search for tough words of the vocabulary which we do not know. We would be like underlining those words, separating those words. Then we are going over to the punctuation marks. Punctuations will help us to understand where which sentences stopping where or continuing where. So we would be focusing on the punctuations. Then what we are going to do is that we are going to check the grammatical way of writing the sentence or the way the poem is given or the lines of the poem is given. Okay, the lines of the poem are given. So here we are going to look at the this parenthesis, that is the arrangement, how the words are written after one another. Grammatical error is there or not? All right. So if then we are going to ask questions to the syntax, that where, how, when, all these questions. If we ask and if we get the answers, then definitely we will start understanding about the poem. And last but not the least, we will we will not consider the speaker and the poet together because they can be separate persons also. All right, so we have to look properly. Now, stanza 1. Uh, let's summarize each of them. Don't tell me, sweetheart, that I'm unkind because I'm going away from the nunnery of your pure breast and quiet mind. I'm going to war. So, this is what stanza 1 is trying to say. We have already understood this one. Stanza number 2 says, "True, I have a new mistress to chase now. The new mistress is the first enemy I find in the field of battle. I'm embracing a sword, a horse, and a shield with a stronger faith." Stanza 3 says, "However, you will appreciate my disloyalty because of what motivates it. I could not love you the way I do if I didn't love honor more." So you see, this is how the stanza is coming to in simple languages. This is how you can frame a summary. You can have an idea of each of the poems. Now, there are other rules also. Find out who's present in the poem. Yep, I forgot to mention it. Find out the characters properly. Ask these characters, who are they, from where have they come about, why are they doing so in the poem. Try to ask them. Ask them in the sense, just try to, in your mind, try to communicate with the characters that why is this character over here. All right. So like that. Next, number 6. Okay, the speaker is a man who's leaving the one he loves in order to go to war. So the other person in the poem is Lucasta, whose name appears only in the title. So this lady love is Lucasta, about who the name is already given in the title of the poem. Next, that you should be understanding is determining any facts about the setting and the situation. So the poem doesn't tell you much about the situation. Yep, this poem is not telling us much about the situation. You never find out which wars he is going to. Yes, we do not even find out while reading the poem that which war he's talking about, where Lucasta lives. So we don't even know where Lucasta lives or how she reacts to her lover's comments. That also isn't told in a very clear way. But in this situation, it's okay because you already know the basic literal meaning of to Lucasta going to the wars. Yes, it's okay because we could at least understand that it was a war poem, and the soldier, the person who is going to fight, is just leaving his lady love and just going to the battlefield. His new mistress is the new battlefield against whom he will fight. Okay. Yep. So that's it for today's class. Let's continue once again in our next classes. Yeah, so that's it for today's class. If you want to join our classes and continue with a series of discussions on the AP examination, then you can just go over to the description box below this video. You will get all the details regarding our classes. Our official website is www.saurabhsclasses.com. You can also get the phone number at the beginning of the video, and you can also get it in the description box just below this video. So go ahead and join our classes.